Hi there and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to do our Premier League predictions for 2019-2020. As you can see here, it is officially Sunday the 17th of May 2020. We are in the future right now. We've gone on to an old television we've found, we've gone on to CEEFAX, and we're looking at the final Premier League table. With my predictions, I'm even looking into how many goals, wins, draws and points we're going to get. I'm literally going to predict what the table is going to look like, even down to points. And obviously saying that, it's not going to be 100% accurate. It's going to be more of an estimate looking back at previous seasons and where we think teams are nowadays. But anyway, let's get into it. We're going to do it one at a time from bottom to top. And yeah, let's get into our Premier League predictions for 2019-2020. Right, so in 20th place, and it's always a horrible place to start, and I'm sorry, Sheffield United fans, I have gone for you guys to be 20th this season. It's nothing personal. It's going to be tighter this year, I think, than last year. If you look at last season's table, I think Cardiff were down about Huddersfield went down in last place about 18 points. I can see you guys being a lot better than that. I can see you guys being very competitive. I'm predicting you guys are going to win around 7 of your games this season, draw around 5, lose 26, score around 33 goals, concede around 78 for 26 points. So I think you guys are going to be competitive. Like I say, I think there's going to be a few teams in the top half which you're going to take some points off and even get the odd upset win. And I'm very intrigued by some of their signings at Sheffield United. I think Ravel Morrison coming in on a free, a guy with something to prove in the Premier League, similar mould in some ways to maybe a Vardy or someone who's obviously got some talent but has had a difficult journey to get to the top. So Sheffield United have an interesting story this year to see how they get on, and it's not going to be far off between them and the team in 19th. So let's see who we've gone for in 19th. Right, so 19th place we have Norwich City, another newly promoted side. 2 of the 3 I'm saying going to go straight back down. And it's nothing against the 2 teams that I've chosen. Norwich and Sheffield United are similar in the way that they both have a very, very specific style that works for them, that's got them promoted into the Premier League. I think for me the issue with both of them is that I think they do that style very well, but I think now the standard between the Premier League and the Championship in some ways, while being closer in the bottom half, I think to make that transition to being a Premier League club is now that much harder. So even though they've managed to do some pretty decent transfer business, like Patrick Roberts coming in on loan to the end of the season from Manchester City is a good bit of business. Sam Byram from West Ham for $750,000 could be an absolute masterstroke. A guy with a lot of potential, hasn't really got there yet, but I don't think we need to be writing him off just yet. And also people like Josip Djurmic, who come in from Borussia Mönchengladbach, and of course the goalkeeper as well, Ralph Arman, who's a decent goalkeeper. He's going to be probably a little bit busier this year. We expect him to get around about 28 points from my estimate. It's very similar to Sheffield United for me. It could be either one of them bottom or 19th. I wouldn't be surprised to see it the other way around coming into the season. And once again, like Sheffield United, I expect them to have a good game now and again. I would expect them to have a surprise win against someone like a Manchester United at home. It's the sort of thing Norwich will end up doing. They'll have a good game where their system will work very well. I just worry about them against teams like Liverpool. We saw it on Friday night where Liverpool tore them a bit because of how they play and the quality difference, if you see what I mean. 18th place, we've gone for our first surprise of the season, and I think there's always one every year, especially in the second half of the table, the bottom half, because things are getting so much more tighter in and around there. And as you can see from my points, I've gone for Watford with 36 points to get relegated. And the reason why I say that is I think they are a sort of team that if they have a bad run, they could find after a while that to get out of that, they're going to find it very difficult, if you see what I mean. I think mentally wise, and I think with how they do things, they haven't moved on as a lot of the other clubs have. They have spent a bit of money in the summer. Ismaili Sarr's come in, but he's not really going to be ready probably for a few more weeks yet, because he came in on transfer deadline day. Craig Dawson is a decent signing at centre-half for Watford. He'll be the sort of centre-back who can come up and get them a few goals. But I just still wonder, over the course of the season, have they kind of had their purple patch now the last couple of years? Is it like a Stoke scenario where one team this year is going to struggle because of Aston Villa, who obviously we're not guessing to go down at this time? So yeah, we're going to plumb with Watford and see how that goes. On to 17th, and the first team we're going to predict is going to stay up, and that's going to be Burnley this year. I believe there'll be a couple of points ahead of Watford when it's all said and done. Burnley aren't a bad team. They're solid. At home, they are going to get some points. There's no doubt about it. I reckon they'll win around 10 games this year. And I think their transfer business has been remarkably good when you think they don't spend hardly at all. But Eric Peters is shrewd business coming in at left back, no doubt about it. And then you've also got Jay Rodriguez, who's a bit of a club legend and a decent option at the lower down Premier League level. And Danny Drinkwater's also got something to prove as he comes in on loan for the season. So there is potential for Burnley to, push the top half as they have done. It is hard, isn't it, when you look at what they spend and how they operate as a football club. And it's hard to really place them any higher than 17th, in my opinion, at this time, from what the resources they have available to them. But as we've seen in football in the Premier League, with passion, they really could finish anywhere. They could have a good cup run. But as you'll see going forward with this, it's going to be very tight down here. So really, any of these clubs could be one or two places higher or lower. Yes, in 16th place, we've gone for Bournemouth. Once again, a team that's going to be very similar around the Burnley-Watford sort of level, around the 40-point mark, I think, for Bournemouth this year, which I believe is slightly down on last year. But they've been a Premier League club now for about 5 years. They're pretty well established now in what they do. They've done some decent transfer business, nothing too extravagant. Although saying that, Philip Billing from Huddersfield, who's come in, he looks like he could be a bit of a gem of a signing for them. He's a very John Brooks-like signing in that no one else really was looking at him. But Eddie Howe has seen something in him, which obviously is very much what Bournemouth want to put into their team. So I think Bournemouth, once again, will overall have a decent season when it's all said and done. They'll score a lot of goals. I think they'll score around 47-ish. They'll concede a lot, though. Bournemouth, when you look at their history, they generally concede quite a few Premier League goals. I reckon they'll concede only the second highest amount to Sheffield United this year. Where they'll make up the difference is they'll probably score a few more goals. So, yeah, Bournemouth around 16th this year, should still have Premier League survival, could potentially be a relegation candidate with Watford. As you see here, I think we'll get down to the last few games and these guys will all be in the mix maybe to go down. But yeah, 16th place, Bournemouth. Right, 15th place and Newcastle United. Some people will probably be surprised I put them so high. For some people, they might be the first team on the list in 20th place or at least in the relegation zone. But I think Newcastle actually are looking better than what people think. Rafa, when he was there, did a very good job at building some very strong pillars of that football club. Some positions where they've now got players that can play those roles incredibly well. If you look at the chances they created last year, the goals they scored last year versus what they conceded, they were the tightest bottom half team there was. For their chance conversion, I think, was excellent. And what I think Steve Bruce will do to try and encourage positive direction, I don't think he'll do much beyond just try to encourage them to expand that. I think the signing of Joelinton up front and also Saint-Maxim, I believe, wasn't it? They got as well from Nice, the winger. These little parts to go with the Shelvies, to go with the Lysias, the Brafka, the goalkeeper, who I think is incredibly underrated. I think Newcastle this year will do very well. In pre-season, they looked all right as well and actually competed pretty well. So really, Newcastle for me, about the same level as Bournemouth. Decent season, could even sneak in the top half. Is that sort of league this year? Well, as you'll see going forward, we're on 40 points here, and 15th place is what I expect. Well, 40 points might get you this year. Up next, we've gone for Southampton. Southampton, once again, are in the same category as Newcastle, Bournemouth, Burnley, Watford, and all these teams. They'll all be taking points off each other. Southampton's biggest flaw, without a doubt, is their defence. They're the Arsenal of the second half of the league, really, for me. Going forward, they're not bad. They're not terrible, and they've made a few additions there. The style of football their manager likes to play is very brave, really, for the quality they've got. So I think with that in mind, they will be more missed than hit. However, I don't think they're going to go down. I think they've got enough goals in them to stay up. So, yeah, we'll go 14th place, Southampton this season, 44 odd points. I think it'll be a decent enough season for them, and hopefully they can progress from there. Right, on to 13th place, and we've gone for Crystal Palace. We've gone for our first London club here, who are going to sneak in at 13th place. I think they'll be the lowest one of the season. Roy's done a really good job there. It's one of those things where people, I think, have expected him to do a lot worse than what he has. Maybe it was his England reputation towards the end that was slightly tarnished, but he's been a career top manager, and you can see that in what he's doing today at Palace. They're a solid, well organised unit. They've got players who will always hit their top level, like Mihovic, a midfielder, who is the sort of guy who steps up and always rifles home a penalty. They're very good at taking advantage of these situations, and that's why I feel they will be around 10 points out of Watford this year. We're looking about 13th for Crystal Palace, so another good season for the Eagles as they push on. Can they keep Zaha past January? That'll be crucial. If they can, they might be able to get into the top half or just about 11th. If they lose them, they could drop down a bit more. So Crystal Palace, 13th place. 12th place, and closely following them is one of their neighbours, West Ham United. Pellegrini's a quite a changeover, a turnover of players this summer at West Ham. There's been quite a few that have gone out and quite a few that have come in. I've not, out of all the clubs, been entirely 100% impressed with their business this summer. Last year I thought they did very well, and I think that's where a lot of their strength remains in this year's team. But yeah, they're still going to be dangerous. They're still going to score a lot of goals, probably around the 50-goal mark, I believe, this year. But the other thing as well is, looking at West Ham, they do concede a lot. They already shipped 5 yesterday at home to Man City. So I think that is where their Achilles heel is really going to be this season. They've got a bit of a lopsided team as well. They're one of my indecisive teams, West Ham. For me, they even could be that Watford team this year if things really went wrong. But we'll see what happens with them. I think about 12th place, we'll stick with that. And 12th place West Ham. They're one of the puzzling teams of this season, no doubt about it. Right, and as we fill out the first page here, or page 2, the second half of the table, 11th place for Brighton on 48 points. So as you can see here, we've got a 10-point swing from 17th up to 11th place. There's not going to be a lot in it for me in the bottom half of this year. There is a lot of teams with very similar levels of quality. Brighton's advantage for me is they have a poker player in charge of them, Tony Bloom, who is the chairman. He is someone who's a very educated man in making a decision. So behind the scenes for me this summer, I think there's not one football fan out there who doesn't like Chris Hughton and what he's achieved at every football club he's been at. But Brighton were a stagnant unit coming into last season, there's no doubt about it. I think Bloom has made a very positive decision to go with someone who's got a very direct vision of what he wants from the Brighton Football Club. And we've seen it over the weekend already with their performance against Watford. I think the style of football that Potter brings to them is going to be a much more based around trying to force your opponents to make mistakes. We saw that a lot. With a lot of putting balls into dangerous places, a lot more chance creation. And with that, I think they'll score a lot more goals this year. Defensively, I'm not so sure they're much of an improvement, but I think that's the difference. They will score a lot more goals this year, and I think that's what will creep them up the table just to outside the top half. So yeah, I think we'll go for that as the bottom half of our league table. And as you can see, so far, there's one newly promoted team that hasn't even shown up yet. Moving into the top half, and there is that other newly promoted side. They have spent 120 million this summer. Last season, Fulham were that club, and they still got relegated. This season, we're going to go for Aston Villa to be the Wolves more, and they're going to be in the top half, in my opinion. The players they've gone for, I think, have been very clever. It's a good mix of local talent, of players they've got from around the country, and these foreign little gems, players like Trezeguet who've come in, who got a bit of a reputation abroad. Trezeguet was a very good player in the Turkish First Division last season. If he can transition that into the Premier League, he could really be something. And let's not underestimate the abilities of John McGinn in the centre of midfield. For me, he's the sort of player, when you compare to a Paul Pogba of Manchester United, I would look at where Manchester United's success has come from and gone, John McGinn is exactly the sort of player Manchester United would need, because he's not a trendy figure like a Paul Pogba. He's not someone they consider, but for me, he's got that level of quality under his belt already. So yeah, Aston Villa, 10th place this season. I'm expecting them to play a very mixed game with a lot of passion. Their identity is very much coming back, and I think that makes them quite a danger this season. They'll sneak into the top half, and I think they'll even hit the 50-point mark, which I'll be very happy with for their first season back in the big time. Right, and up next we have Everton, and Everton, you see, are aiming for higher. There's no doubt about it. They're one of those clubs that has spent a bit of money and done some decent business. Everyone's intrigued by how Moise Keane's going to get on after his big move from Juventus. But I just don't think they have enough of a consistent performance under their belt yet under Marco Silva in order to push on towards those European places. So I think this season, yeah, similar to last year in their level of performance, I think they'll come about 9th place, just ahead of Aston Villa. It's a free-for-all with them and a few other clubs, as you know, and maybe even a couple of guys from the top 6 this season who have got issues there. And so It's going to be interesting to see how this part unfolds now, but we'll go for Everton in ninth place. And like I was saying in the bottom half, some of these clubs are very close for me this year. It's going to be a very interesting Premier League. In 8th place now we got Wolves, and they've got European football this year, which if you look at what happened to Burnley last year when they had European football, it caused them a slight decline in their league form. I don't expect Wolves to have that. They've not got the biggest squad in terms of numbers, but they have got a nice mix now, and I think their squad of 25 is very competitive. So I think over the course of the season, they will probably be very much in line with what they were doing last year. Against the bigger clubs, they will stand up and give some very good performances. I also can see some of the smaller clubs like the Sheffield Uniteds and like your Norwiches getting wins against Wolves. So I think that's where they might lack that ability to really push on. Otherwise, for me, Wolves could be a top 6 challenger in the same vein of Everton and the same vein of a couple of other teams we're going to look at in a minute. So yeah, Wolves this season will go for 8th. Even with their European run, I think they'll still be well in the top half, and it will still be a decent season for their club. Right, it's time to get controversial. 7th place, the top 6 dominance we are predicting will be broken, because we are predicting the high-spending Manchester United under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer will only be 7th this season. I think there is something very, very strange going on at Manchester United. They seem to be so lopsided that they are very much capable of toppling over at any point, it seems. One game for me, one bad result, they're looking like a team that could be beaten for the season. They've gone out and spent a lot of money on one or two select players, which is interesting. Things don't add up to me there. Pogba's not in a good mental state. Some of their other quality youngsters, Lingard and players like this, aren't playing up to standard. There's going to be a lot of pressure on Rashford this year for a young guy. Now Lukaku has gone, and I just don't know. I think one of these clubs from the top 6 this year is going to have a really tricky season. It could be Tottenham, it could be Chelsea, it could be Arsenal, but I'm going to plumb for United. So yeah, United for me, 7th place this season, and I'm ready to take some abuse for that, and it's probably going to bite me in the ass when they win the league. Yes, you knew it was coming next. 6th place for Leicester City. I'm going to go for a couple of points more than Manchester United. I'm going for a purely karmatic approach here. Man United have signed Leicester's best defender for a region of £80 million this summer. There is some poetic justice in the idea of Leicester, with their goal-scoring power, with a more firing, quicker firing Vardy at the start of this season, finishing above that club. And I can see it happening, you know. Leicester are very dangerous, and they're looking under Brendan Rodgers like they're regaining some of that identity they had before. More of a hybrid fashion between what Puel was doing and what Nigel Pearson would have done back in the day, which was more of a direct counter-attacking system. We're going to see a more complete Leicester City side this year, there's no doubt about it. And the difference for me versus the Wolves, the Evertons, and the Man United is that they haven't got any European football at all. So consequently, I think they can focus on the Premier League. They'll focus entirely on the Cup as well and try and do well there. I think it's going to be a good season. And I'll say, as I always say with Leicester, there is still a part of me, and obviously I am a fan, so you can probably tell why I'm putting them higher up than most people would, but I do know the football club pretty well. Leicester could finish anywhere, and I mean that. It's a funny old thing, football. We proved it a few years ago, and I would still not write off the smallest 1% possibility of us even winning the Premier League. And I'm going to say it right now, we could finish in the top 4. So there we go. Leicester City, I'll go with 6th. I'm going to rein myself in a bit. And that's the thing, people don't realise that I'm reining in with 6th place. I think we could do more. So yeah, we'll go for that. And now we'll look at the top 5 places. We know what teams they're going to be, but which order are we going to go for? Who's going to snatch that Champions League spot? Yes, just missing out 5th place for Chelsea for us this year. I don't think they're in that bad shape at all, actually. And there is a poetic irony in them having a transfer ban for all the years that Chelsea had great youth talent on their books and completely neglected them to the point where they would leave the club and go on to be great successes. You can name your Kevin De Bruyne's as one example, Mo Salah's for one example. Players that Chelsea have brought in and it hasn't worked out. And now they're being forced to use their academy a bit more, and they've got some great young players like Mason Mount, who looks a great talent. Some all over the pitch, they've got this ability to bring through youth and young players. So I'm very excited to see how Frank gets on with that. They've got the perfect manager for that. It's a very Manchester United scenario with Chelsea in that they've gone for a younger ex-player manager as such, who has got a bit more of a passion for the badge of the club, and I think that will stand Chelsea in good stead. I can see people like Pulisic playing well as well, and I think Chelsea will be alright this year. They'll be a solid team under Frank, and I think they will just miss out on the Champions League. But I think overall it'll be a decent season, bearing in mind the circumstances they are working under. That means I'm going to go for 4th place and that first Champions League spot for the Gunners, Arsenal. Now, Arsenal are a funny one because they really have had issues at the back. The defence has been what has been on every Arsenal supporter's mind. They've got defenders for them which really aren't good enough, probably to the similar vein of Southampton. I think I mentioned that previously. In that Arsenal are very good at going forward, and for me on paper, especially with the signing of Nicolas Pepe, they have potentially got the best strike force in the entire Premier League. When you've got Pepe, Lacazette and Aubameyang up there playing well, I think they can be a dangerous team. And as you see, I've gone for them to score a lot of goals this season, somewhere in the region of 77. They have made a deadline day transfer move for David Luiz that will make a difference to them, in my opinion. A lot of people aren't so keen on David Luiz, but when he's on and when he plays well, for me, he is still a very, very top defender. So, yeah, we'll go for Arsenal to get 2 points approximately ahead of Chelsea, about 72, I reckon, to get into 4th place, and another positive step for them this season. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how they get on. Right, 3rd place, and it's Tottenham Hotspur. I think this season they will do what they've been doing for the last few years. I think they will come 3rd. I think they'll be comfortably 3rd, as you can see here. I think the battle will be for Arsenal and Chelsea for that 4th place. I think Tottenham are going to be in a league of their own versus those guys in 3rd place. They've got such a depth to their team now. They've made the right signings for me. And they're just really on a positive wave of momentum with the new stadium. We saw it over the weekend against yesterday against Aston Villa, where Villa played very well, but Tottenham managed to turn it around with that home positive atmosphere. And I think there's times I wonder about Tottenham's mentality, there's no doubt about it. And there's times I wonder about Harry Kane perhaps even being slightly constricting to them as a football club. Lucas Moura coming in has definitely made a massive difference to how they can score and attack. And I've always wondered, like I say, if Kane sometimes makes that a bit more static than what he should be. But yeah, we're going to go for Tottenham to finish somewhere in the region of 11 points, I reckon, approximately ahead of Arsenal. I think it'd be four wins or so. So yeah, Tottenham for 3rd place. And now that leaves the big question, the top 2. Are we going to go for Liverpool? Are we going to go for Man City? Let's find out. Last season I predicted them to win the league. This season I predicted them to finish 2 points ahead of Tottenham, and I've gone for 2nd place for Liverpool. I think for me last season was a very, very close run effort, and I think they probably deserved to win the league actually last year, controversially. I think in spite of points, I mean, points make prizes, obviously, but I think in spite of points, Liverpool's overall season was probably better than that of Manchester City's. The difference this year for me is that I think they haven't really progressed forward from where they are. Last season it was funny because you think this is the 3rd season of Klopp as such. Last season they seemed to, in some ways, go back a step in how they played and not play as expansive as they were the season before. This season I wonder if it will be similar to last year, except they'll have 1 or 2 more errors creeping in. I think the quality of team this year, when you look at the top and you've got Aston Villa there, Everton, Wolves, Leicester, all these teams are going to be able to compete with Liverpool and cause them issues. While I still expect Liverpool to be comprehensively 2nd, it will be a bit of a battle with Spurs, I think, this year. But, you know, I think 2nd place for Liverpool, I think, is a decent season. Maybe they'll win the Champions League 2 years running. I mean, they've got the ability to do that. That's the sort of club they are, and I'm a big fan of Klopp and what he's doing there. And, of course, I'll still say it now, there is a chance they could win the Premier League this year. Absolutely. Yes, and that leaves number 1 Manchester City as my prediction for this year. And as you can see, I think they're going to win the league by a country mile this year. I really think Pep and what he has done there is superb. It really is. Don't get me wrong, he's got money. They've still spent a bit this summer. I wouldn't say they'd spent extremely extravagant amounts like they have been known to in the past. but I think their system and how they play and the players they've already had there who are developing, like the Gabriel Jesuses, I think they're going to really push on this year with the more of the twilight era of David Silva, getting towards the end of their careers, but adding more passion to that cause as well. I can see them this year probably being 16 odd points ahead of Liverpool, with the greatest respect to Liverpool. So Manchester City this year for me are going to be the Premier League champions. Last season I predicted Liverpool and it was Manchester City. This season I predict Manchester City. Maybe it'll be Liverpool, but we will see. And as you can see there, I'm predicting a top 6 that's going to be broken up by Leicester City. I'm predicting it's going to be close in and around that 6th to 10th place. And as we saw in the bottom half already, I think the relegation battle this year is going to be very tasty, with a few clubs down there, including a few experienced Premier League sides. Anyway, we're going to see how this unfolds over the course of the season. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know in the comments what you think is going to happen in the Premier League. If you agree with some of my theories, if you completely think I've lost it on some of them, let me know. Let's see how it gets on, eh? Premier League is back, baby. See you next time.